At 2 a.m., a call from Crucian woke me up. His voice was low and hoarse, with a hint of panic. Ria, something's wrong. I was stunned. Aren't you on a business trip? What happened? He paused for a long time, as if organizing his words. Isla Lynn, she's pregnant, 8 months. A boom exploded in my mind. You too? No, he immediately explained. We haven't had any kind of relationship. Before I could even breathe a sigh of relief, Crucian continued, the doctor just contacted me, saying she fainted. I was listed as the emergency contact in her phone, and she's still in the emergency room now. By the time I arrived, the doctor had just come out. Fortunately, it was a false alarm. The fetal condition is stable. The preliminary speculation is that fainting was caused by malnutrition. Crucian leaned against the wall, his voice low as if something was stuck in his throat. She did something foolish. She used my sperm. I turned around abruptly. What? Do you remember that joint experiment I participated in Europe a few years ago? At that time, we all left samples for genetic screening research, and she took my portion. She said she doesn't want status or money, she just wants to leave me a child. She knows you can't have children, and she knows that I actually, really want a child. My mind was buzzing, and for a moment, I didn't know whether to feel angry or absurd. This is the most hidden and silent crack in our marriage. One we tacitly agreed not to mention, and now, it is an outsider who has intruded in this way. In the hospital room, Isla Lynn slowly opened her eyes, and the first person she saw was me. She struggled to sit up, her trembling hands gripping my arm, her voice hoarse but firm. Madam, I never intended to have any outcome with Professor Shen from the very beginning. I know I have no right, but this child deserves to come into this world. I love him, but I respect you even more. I just want to have his child, and then I'll step aside for you too. Please let me give birth to this child. I stood there, looking at her haggard yet stubborn eyes, feeling as if I couldn't breathe. Crucian stood behind me and whispered, Ria, the child is innocent, and so is she. I let out a bitter laugh. Crucian, you waited 8 months to tell me. You really know how to handle me. He remained silent. I've always known that Isla Lynn is different from others. She is the orphan of Crucian's mentor. Since she was entrusted to the Shen family at the age of 19, she has always remained on the periphery of our lives. All these years, Crucian has not only paid for her education and taken care of her living expenses, he even arranged for her to live in an apartment just 3 stops away from our home and often personally drives her to and from places. Isla Lynn never hides her thoughts, those so-called coincidences. Sending a help message late at night, knocking on my door in thin clothes saying there's a water leak, coincidentally falling ill and needing his care while I'm on a business trip. She grew bolder with each attempt. Unfortunately, Crucian never truly had the heart to refuse her outright. He would put on a cold face and say it's not appropriate, but he never truly lost his temper. She is the teacher's only child, alone and helpless. I can't be too heartless. He thought he had been clear enough. But he didn't understand. For a woman who had been secretly in love with him for a long time, as long as there was room left, it was enough to weave fantasies. I nodded. The child has nothing to do with me. You can have it if you want. My mind was in chaos, and I happened to take on a research project that would require some time. By the time I returned, the child had already been born, a little boy. I stood at the door of the hospital room, hearing laughter from inside. Crucian once said, in this world, I care for you the most, but at this moment, he was carefully lifting the baby from the swaddling clothes, his voice gentle. Don't cry, Daddy's little darling. You are the one Daddy loves most in this world. Isla Lynn flipped through a parenting manual. This child's nose resembles yours, but the eyes look more like mine. Crucian also chimed in. Yeah, why don't we just name him Cruz? It suits his old man here. I was standing right at the door. Yet none of them noticed me. I couldn't help but let out a light cough. Crucian looked up, his gaze fixed on me. In that instant, his smile abruptly faded. Ria, I walked in, and the room immediately fell silent. Sister, if you don't like me, I'll raise the child on my own and won't step into the Shen family's door. Before, you called me teacher's wife, but now you've changed it to sister. You said you would give the child to me, but now you're raising it all by yourself. I laughed. Isla, I didn't realize you were so considerate of me. Her eyes reddened. I know that Teacher Shin has always wanted a child, and I wanted to fulfill that wish for you. I stared at her and threw the documents in my hand onto her bed. Information on the penalties for unauthorized use of the gene bank. You come from a research background. I don't believe you didn't know this was illegal. Her face suddenly changed color, and her lips trembled. Suddenly, the child burst into loud sobs. Cruisen immediately held him tightly, whispering words of comfort. At that moment, I suddenly realized, no matter who was right or wrong, this child would forever stand between us. I turned to leave, but Cruisen grabbed the corner of my clothes. Rhea, thank you for not holding it against me. But there's one more thing I'd like to discuss with you. Isla just gave birth and her recovery has been slow. The doctor suggested she continue resting. The apartment in the East City gets plenty of sunlight and has all the amenities. After she's discharged, could she stay there temporarily? I could take care of her while I'm at it. My throat tightened, and I almost bit out the words, live in our home, but she has no other relatives. As he said this, his gaze remained as clear and calm as ever. Rhea, she just needs someone to help her. I looked at Cruisen, feeling as if a lump of cotton were stuck in my throat, suffocating me. What about me? I asked softly. You're taking her home, so what about me? Am I supposed to live under the same roof as her? If you really feel it's inappropriate, you can move to Donglan residence first. It's farther from the research center and quieter. So that's how it is. I smiled bitterly and turned to leave. I met Cruisen 10 years ago at the thesis proposal meeting. I just returned to the country, and he was there on behalf of the advisor to give feedback, sitting in the last row. His suit perfectly neat, even the cuffs buttoned meticulously. Most of the questions others asked were polite and formal, but he alone pointed directly to the weakest point of logical deduction in my paper. I've read the one you published earlier in JNS. It shows good analytical skills. At that moment, I had a strange feeling he wasn't trying to put me down, but rather to remind me not to let myself be dragged along by habitual thinking. What followed was a natural progression. We applied for projects together, ran data analyses, and pulled all-nighters to write review materials. He was always the one who handled the final touches, quietly standing behind me and filling in the gaps I had missed. I fell in love with him after we shared an exceptionally ordinary meal together. That day we were arguing endlessly about the thesis when he suddenly fell silent for a long time, then took me to the small noodle shop behind the school, a tiny table, 2 people who hadn't eaten properly. He picked out the chili peppers from my bowl, then used a tissue to wipe the soup that had splashed onto my sleeve. He said, Rhea, your sharpness is a good thing, but not every battle needs to be won. People should save some energy for more important things. I looked at him like that and suddenly understood, I would marry this person. But now, I can't figure out where things went wrong. If it's because of the child, then he is the one who owes. That year we had just gotten married and encountered an accident while abroad for an academic discussion. I instinctively stepped in front of him. When the knife came down, I only felt a sudden warmth in my abdomen. As if my whole body was being torn apart. It was him who carried me into the hospital, him who knelt outside the emergency room, pounding his chest and crying his heart out. That night, he was trembling all over, holding my hand and saying over and over again, Rhea, I'm sorry, I swear, for the rest of my life. You will be the only one I treasure. He spoke so sincerely, crying in a way that broke your heart. After that, I never brought up the child again, but Isla Lin had his child. I lowered my head and typed a line on my phone, Cruisen, let's get a divorce. Within half an hour, the doorbell rang. Cruisen pushed the door open and entered, looking travel-worn and weary. Rhea, don't be impulsive. I didn't turn around, just placed my phone back on the coffee table. It's not impulse. It's long overdue clarity. He walked over and sat down on the single sofa across from me, remaining silent for a long time. She needs some time to recover. We've agreed that in a month. I'll give her a sum of money and send her abroad. The child will stay at home, and she will never come back. I laughed. Cruisen, have you always believed that you did nothing wrong? He froze. I looked at him and said, word by word, you knew full well that she coveted this family, that she stole from you to get pregnant. Yet you still gave her hope, not only allowing her to like you but also staying by her side through the birth. Now, are you willing to send her abroad? I'm sorry. It's all my fault, but Rhea, the child has already been born. It's a life, we can't just ignore it. What about me? I raised my voice uncontrollably. Have you ever thought about me? Don't you know why I can't have children? Am I not worth being protected? His Adam's apple bobbed, but he said nothing. I looked at him, my eyes stinging. You said she was too weak and needed proper rest. Fine. We could spend some money to let her stay in a hospital or a good postpartum care center. Or find a nice hotel and hire a few nannies. But you refused. Just because she said she only trusts you, you surrendered and gave up our home, throwing me out. Ask yourself honestly, do you truly want a child, or do you just want to take care of them, the mother and child? He stared at me, silent to the point of severity. At that moment, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, hesitated for a moment, but still answered. Brother, I'm feeling a bit dizzy, and my wound has reopened. Could you come over for a moment? It was Isla Lynn's voice, filled with grievance and fragility. Crucian remained silent for a few seconds, glanced at me, then looked down at his phone as if struggling with a difficult decision. Rhea, I need to go check on her first. After all, she just gave birth. I didn't speak. Just watched him stand up and leave in a hurry. The moment the door closed, I smiled faintly. No matter how much I cry and complain, it's not as good as a single phone call from Isla Lynn. I know, he might never marry Isla Lynn, but he would be needed by her again and again, his life's rhythm disrupted by her. How much longer can I endure such days if I don't get a divorce? 3 months, 3 years, or a lifetime? I contacted a lawyer to draft the divorce agreement. When I woke up again, it was because my phone was ringing incessantly by my ear. Rhea G. Crucian's voice roared from the other end of the phone. If you have any issues, take them up with me. Before I could speak, he continued furiously. Why did you send those emails to Isla Lynn accusing her of stealing from the gene bank? Her postpartum depression is already severe enough. Are you trying to drive her to her death? I froze. I never sent any emails. But he didn't ask, he simply convicted me outright. This was the first time he lost his temper with me. Rhea, the doctor said she's very emotionally unstable after giving birth. If we hadn't found her in time last night, she would have committed suicide. A living person's life, can't you just be a little kinder? Whether you believe it or not, I didn't do it, and I wouldn't stoop to such methods. Rhea, no matter what, I'm begging you, when she's discharged from the hospital, come see her and apologize, if only for my sake. Only if you come will she be able to let go of her psychological burden. The man on the phone was probably crying, his voice trembling. I wiped away the falling tears and finally nodded. Okay, there was no apology, but our relationship truly needed a resolution. I arrived at the hospital as promised. Crucian saw me and nodded toward me. Rhea, thank you for coming. When Isla Lynn saw it was me, she suddenly became emotional, her eyes instantly reddening as she struggled to sit up. Sister, please don't report me. I can't bear to be separated from my child. Can you give us, mother and son, a little more time? As she spoke, she shakily knelt down before me. The nurse, frightened, quickly held her back. You just had a C-section, you can't kneel. Shinsuei quickly supported her, scolding in a tone. Rhea, why are you so indifferent now? People around turned to look, and I just stood there, having done nothing. Yet I became the cold-blooded and vengeful villain. Fortunately, Crucian still had some sense of shame. He first took me to the car. When getting in the car, Shinsuei probably wanted to ease the atmosphere. She handed the child to me. Rhea, you hold her for a while. The little one has been especially well behaved today. Before I could agree, the child was placed in my arms. She was indeed soft and cuddly. My heart softened a little. But before the car could even leave the hospital gate, the baby in my arms began to squirm, followed by a series of sharp cries. What's wrong? Isla Lynn's expression changed, and she cried out, he's breaking out in a rash. Is he allergic again? The nurse said the baby is allergic to perfume. A few days ago, my sister covered him in bumps, and they just went away. Hey, don't talk nonsense. I didn't do anything. The two sisters quickly defended themselves. Only me. Crucian glanced at me, his expression turning displeased. Rhea, Did you spray perfume? Before I could say anything, the child's crying grew even more piercing, and small red rashes appeared densely all over their face. Stop the car, Isla Lynn shouted anxiously. Crucian sharply turned the steering wheel and sped into the hospital's emergency lane. As he got out of the car holding the child, he muttered under his breath, "You're causing trouble even before becoming a stepmother. You really disappoint me." My hand trembled, and I almost fell to the ground. The hospital corridor was bitterly cold. I stood there, like an empty shell with my soul drained away. Shen Sui's eyes were filled with disgust. "What has our Shen family ever done to wrong you? Cruz has never cheated, and now you can't even tolerate a child. You're too vicious." I lowered my head and remained silent. Cruz Shen finally appeared. "The doctor said the child is out of danger." I looked at him, trying to clarify. "I didn't mean to, I didn't know." But he wouldn't listen and immediately cut me off. His gaze held an unfamiliar judgment. "Rhea, you make me feel cold and unfamiliar." I clutched the document tightly in my hand, my heart feeling as if it were weighed down by a 1,000-pound boulder. Finally, with a trembling voice, I handed it over. "All right. I'll give you a happy family in return. Crucian, let's get a divorce." He was taken aback for a moment, then his eyes darkened, and he remained silent. I didn't dare to look at him again. Afraid that I wouldn't be able to hold back my tears, Cruz, Isla Lynn appeared weakly at the door of the hospital room, staggering on her feet. "Sister, if you're angry, take it out on me. Why hurt my child?" The onlooking family members and nurses all turned to look, whispering among themselves, "Is this the woman who caused the child's allergic reaction and hospitalization? She looks quite elegant. How could she do such a thing?" I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Crucian quickly walked over and helped her up, holding her protectively in his arms with a panicked expression. "Your health is what matters." He turned to look at me, his eyes as cold as a blade. "Rhea, come over and apologize to Isla. Otherwise," I stuffed that crumpled piece of paper into his hand, "otherwise, isn't it this?" He glanced down, his thin lips pressed tightly together, but he still took it. "Jealousy has made you lose your rationality. It might be good for us to spend some time apart so you can calm down." I laughed, but tears fell. "Since you've made up your mind, don't ask me any more." I turned and walked away, my steps unsteady, each one feeling like stepping on the edge of a knife, but I never expected that Crucian wasn't going to let me off. At 2 in the morning, the door was suddenly kicked open. Before I could even react, I was dragged out of bed. Crucian's eyes were red. His grip so strong it felt like he was about to crush my shoulder bones. "Rhea, are you even human? What's wrong with you?" "Wrong with me?" He slapped me across the face without hesitation, the sting sharp and burning. "Look what you've done." I was shoved into the passenger seat, my clothes still not properly on. As the car sped all the way to the hospital, the lights outside the ward were pale and glaring, nurses hurried back and forth, and everyone looked at me as if I were some kind of monster. "Are you satisfied now?" Crucian forced me to my knees, grinding his teeth in fury. "Isla left a suicide note when she slit her wrists, saying you threatened her to die, or else you would expose her secrets and make the child live a life of hatred and torment." His eyes were bloodshot, his voice almost torn apart. "But she said she doesn't blame you, only begs you to treat the child well." My mind exploded with a deafening buzz. I don't have, Crucian, I didn't do it. She already committed suicide and you're still lying." He roared, punching the wall, blood trickling down his knuckles. "You're a venomous woman. If something happens to her, I'll make you pay with your life." The red light in the emergency room stayed on all night. Sister Shen pointed at me and scolded sharply. "This is premeditated murder. We must call the police." My face was still swollen, the corner of my mouth was split, and there were bruises on my arms from being forcibly dragged. My ears were ringing, though I couldn't tell if it was from the beating or the yelling. People around me were pointing and whispering, and some were even recording videos. How can there be such a vicious woman? Hurry up and expose her. If my teacher hadn't arrived in time, I'm afraid I would have really ended up in jail. The teacher stood firmly in front of me. "I am vouching for Rhea for now. We'll wait until the investigation is clear before making any decisions." "Teacher," my nose tingled with emotion, and all my composure was on the verge of collapsing. Crucian remained silent, just quietly watching Isla Lynn, who was still being resuscitated in the hospital room. Finally, the doctor came out and said, "She's been saved." Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. But before I could recover, the internet exploded. Academic big shot threatens love rival with suicide. Even poisons newborn child. In just a few hours, the topic soared to the top of the hot search list, and the comment section exploded like a boiling pot. Madman, how can a woman like this even be considered human? So cold-blooded, this kind of person should be put in jail, ban her, let her die. I became the embodiment of a vicious woman. During that period, I couldn't leave my home, my address was exposed, someone splashed red paint on my doorstep. And curses and insults were constantly heard. There were even extremists who sneaked into the neighborhood, wielding knives and wanting to deliver justice on behalf of heaven. I almost lost my life on the spot, and it was only because the property management urgently pulled down the rolling shutter that I escaped. Trembling all over, I made that call, no longer caring about my last shred of dignity. Crucian. Choking up, I called out his name, my voice hoarse. I almost died. There was a silence on the other end of the phone for a few seconds, but it was colder and more ruthless than ever before. "This is the retribution you deserve." He hung up the phone without hesitation. I sat on the floor, my phone slipping from my hand, tears silently falling onto my knees. So, in his eyes, I wasn't worth saving. It's not that I never considered he didn't love me, but I never imagined he wished for my death. Half a month later, my mind finally pieced it together. I had installed a small surveillance camera in the bathroom. That was a few months ago. When Crucian got injured, I was worried he might slip and fall in the shower, so I installed it out of concern. He said I was overthinking it, but I just couldn't rest easy, so I never removed it. Now, it has become my only lifeline. I took out the SD card and inserted it into my laptop. Fingers trembling uncontrollably, they hit the enter key several times before the surveillance footage from that night finally lit up the screen. In the early hours of the morning, Isla Lynn walked in wearing a bathrobe. She stood in front of the mirror, repeatedly adjusting the necklace around her neck, then bent down to retrieve a small bottle from under the sink, pouring a red liquid into the water where the color quickly spread. She even deliberately reapplied her lipstick in the mirror, her expression completely unruffled. Then, she got into the bathtub, took out her phone, and started typing. Soon after, footsteps were heard outside the door. She quickly slid her hand away, closed her eyes, buried her face in the water, and gently stirred her fingers beneath the surface. It was like a well-rehearsed play, with even the despair performed so convincingly. I felt a chill all over my body, and goosebumps rose layer by layer. It's fake. She never intended to die that day. I quickly copied the video and was about to send it to the teacher when a call came in. It was the teacher. "Ria, how are things on your end?" My voice was hoarse. "I have evidence now." "Excellent." He paused for a moment, his voice lowering. "I've also uncovered some suspicious things here. One, the child is not Crucian's." My knuckles gripping the phone turned white inch by inch. "What?" "We checked the records in the gene bank. From the process perspective, Crucian's file was never even accessed. In fact, it had long been frozen and sealed." The teacher's tone carried a hint of coldness. Isla Lynn did intend to steal his identity back then, but she didn't succeed, so she found someone else. But from the very beginning, she never intended to tell anyone. My heart tightened suddenly. "The child is not Crucian's at all. I suspect that Isla Lynn knew you were suspicious. So she orchestrated that allergic reaction incident when you accidentally went to the hospital." "I just got information from a friend at the hospital. The allergen component from that night couldn't possibly exist in the perfume you usually use. He tampered with the child's bedding. Then she happened to kneel publicly just as you went to pick her up from the hospital, coordinating with the hospital's widely discussed allergy incident to gradually turn you into the target of public criticism. She wanted to use the child's death to completely destroy you." My stomach churned, and I nearly vomited. So, the so-called postpartum depression was just an excuse to force me to go to the hospital. To this end, she even harmed her own child. "Too bad she didn't succeed in dying," the teacher said coldly. I slowly sat down, my body trembling uncontrollably. My fingers digging tightly into my thighs, my nails sinking into the flesh without any sensation. She's gone mad, I murmured. No, she's perfectly lucid. The teacher's voice cut through clearly, more lucid than any of us. I tightened my grip on the surveillance copy in my palm, calming myself for a long moment. Finally, my gaze gradually turned cold. Then it's time for her to face the reckoning. I spent 3 whole days gathering all the evidence, surveillance footage, hospital lab reports, genetic database records, and allergen test results, and handed everything over to my lawyer. We can file lawsuits for defamation, intentional harm, and conspiracy to frame someone, the lawyer said with a calm expression. We are sure to win this case. But I'm concerned it might damage your and your spouse's reputation. It doesn't matter, I said softly, without a hint of hesitation in my eyes. It's not me who is wrong. In the past, I endured because I still loved. Now, I am clear-headed because I disdain. That very night, Crucian received the video footage from the bathroom surveillance. One Crucian sat in the vast living room, the dim light falling on his stubble-covered face. The overwhelming emptiness of the room felt as though it could swallow a person at any moment. He watched the video over and over again, each frame like a knife, slicing apart his once self-righteous understanding. She never intended to die, she just wanted Rhea to die. He abruptly pressed pause, and the video froze on the moment Isla Lynn poured the fake blood. How could this be? It's fake, all of it is fake. The child is not his. The so-called suicide note was also a script she wrote for herself. The allergies, the threats, it was all part of her scheme. Rhea never harmed the children. Outside, the rain was pouring down. He ran to the door of Donglan Mansion, his heart filled with regret and pain. He pressed the doorbell several times, but still received no response, so he raised his hand and knocked heavily on the door. Rhea, open the door, I'm begging you, he shouted with all his might, his voice urgent and full of pleading. Rain kept falling on his face. The door still did not open. Rhea, please don't leave me like this. I know I was wrong. I truly was wrong. Give me a chance, and I will make up for all my mistakes. Rhea, open the door, please. Have you forgotten all the beautiful moments we shared? We watched the stars together on the balcony, the first meal you cooked for me, the times you stayed by my side when I was sick, bringing me water again and again through the night. Rhea, those days were truly happy. I know I was wrong. I deserve to die. You can hit me, curse me. I only beg you to forgive me this once. The rain kept pouring down, blurring his figure. The door still did not open. He completely broke down and collapsed at the doorway. His face was a mix of tears and rain, the pain in his heart making it almost impossible to breathe. Just as he was about to lose consciousness, the door finally opened. I stood behind the door, my fingertips still resting on the doorknob. After hesitating for a second, I ultimately opened the door. As the door opened, a cold wind carrying the chill of rain rushed in. Crucian was slumped outside, completely drenched by the rain. His face was deathly pale, but his eyes stubbornly fixed on me. When he saw me come out, he slowly stood up. His eyes filled with surprise, but when I saw him like this, my heartbeat didn't falter, and my emotions remained calm. I just felt a little cold. The wind was too strong. His fingers gripped my shoulders tightly. Rhea, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Please, don't leave me. He grabbed me so hard it hurt, and I pushed him away, causing him to fall to the ground. He tried to stand up, but due to his lack of strength, he ended up kneeling directly in front of the door, his knees hitting the floor tiles with a dull thud. Rhea, I once laid my whole heart before you, and you said it was disgusting. Now that I've taken it back, you're crying and begging. But when it comes to feelings, once you miss the chance, there's truly no turning back. Let's part on good terms and stop doing these things. Otherwise it will make all those sweet memories feel disgusting. He opened his mouth, his lips already pale from the cold, and murmured repeatedly, I'm sorry, Crucian. I stared into his eyes. The divorce papers are signed. Let's not see each other again. He stared at me blankly, as if finally understanding my resolve. Then, his eyes slowly closed, and he collapsed into the rain. Losing consciousness, I didn't move. There was no sense of triumph. nor any pain in my heart, only a numbness so profound it felt like clarity. Not far away, someone rushed over in a hurry. Seeing Kruzhin lying unconscious on the ground, their expression changed abruptly. Bro, she rushed over, knelt beside him, and trembling, pulled out her phone to call for help. Her voice quivered. Is this 120? Help, my brother has passed out. Soon, an ambulance arrived, its lights flashing glaringly in the rainy night. He remained unconscious the entire night. The doctor said his body had reached its limit, suffering from severe mental and physical exhaustion. If he had been any later, the consequences would have been unimaginable. As I listened to these words, my heart remained completely calm. He was the one who had pushed himself step by step to this point. I sat by the bed, watching the sky outside gradually brighten. The night and the rain had both passed. I know, I should leave too. This city holds too many memories I no longer wish to recall. Every corner once concealed my pain and grievances. Even if he wakes up again, cries again, repents again, it has nothing to do with me anymore. One Kruzhin woke up to the pungent smell of disinfectant in the hospital. The moment he opened his eyes, his mind was in chaos, but the words echoed repeatedly in his head, never see you again. His throat was dry, he wanted to speak, but no sound came out. The next second, he saw the person sitting by the bed, Isla Lin, that woman who was once delicate, obedient, and whom he thought needed protection. At this moment, however, she looked haggard. Her eyes red-rimmed, tightly clutching a court summons in her hand. Cruz, you're finally awake. Her voice was hoarse, tears welling in her eyes. I can't bear those accusations. Only you can save me now. Only you can protect me and the child. He sat up silently, looking at her coldly. How dare you even mention the child? Isla Lin was taken aback. I truly love you. I was just too afraid of losing you. Afraid of losing me, Kruzhin sneered. So you resorted to fabricating accusations, staging a fake suicide, framing others, and even using a child's life as a tool. That's not it. Tears streamed down Isla Lin's face. I just wanted a home, a life with you. Kruzhin interrupted her. Are you worthy? His voice wasn't loud, but each word was icy and piercing. Do you think a little pity from you will soften my heart? I'd rather have never known you than be dragged into this hell by you. Isla Lin's face was pale, and her body trembled violently. Cruz, please. Save me and the child. Get out. Kruzhin coldly spat out a single word. She froze. Kruzhin closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, his gaze was as sharp as a knife. You and that so-called child of yours have nothing to do with me. Remember, what you owe Rhea can never be repaid in a lifetime. After saying this, he turned over and got out of bed, pulled out the 4-tube, and put on his coat, enduring the intense pain. Where are you going? Isla Lin panicked. Kruzhin ignored the doctor's advice and rushed out of the hospital room. The sound of his footsteps echoed in the hallway, growing heavier with each step. In his daze, he heard the news that Rhea was about to go abroad. While driving, he called Rhea's phone over and over again, but no one answered. Rhea, please. Answer me just once. His vision blurred. He didn't notice the large truck coming from the turn ahead. Bang! A loud crash tore through the rainy night. Blood dripped slowly from his forehead, his eyes were wide open, his lips slightly parted, but no sound came out anymore. His mind went blank, as if countless voices were intertwining in his ears. Everything seemed so hazy. Rhea, he murmured her name, a final gentle tear glistening in his eyes. A few hours later, Kruzhin was rushed into the emergency room with severe head trauma, a collapsed sternum, and in critical condition. Meanwhile, at the airport, I had just finished checking my luggage when my phone lit up with a text from the teacher. He was in a serious car accident and is currently undergoing emergency treatment. Standing in front of the boarding gate, my fingertips trembled slightly. A moment later, I put away my phone, my face expressionless. Dragging my luggage, I walked into the boarding gate without looking back, flying off into the distance. 3 years later, I stood in front of the new research building at Tsinghua University. Looking up at my reflection in the glass curtain wall, my expression calm and my steps resolute. This time, I have returned as the chief researcher to jointly sign off on a national key project. No one will remember how disheveled I was when I left 3 years ago, and no one knows how that past, buried in rainy nights and blooded tears, once stripped me of all my faith in love. Rhea. Suddenly, someone called out to me. The voice was hoarse and broken. Like a raspy remnant after a throat had been slashed by a sharp blade. I turned my head. Crucian sat in a wheelchair, enveloped by the sunlight from behind, but that light could no longer conceal his haggard, pale face. His left leg was visibly atrophied, and he leaned on a heavy metal support frame. His entire body was so emaciated that he was almost unrecognizable. The shape of his eyes and brows remained familiar, yet they held a weariness carved by years and illness. Even his gaze seemed somewhat clouded. "You're back," he said, his voice trembling, a flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. The car accident 3 years ago left him paralyzed from the waist down, accompanied by severe concussion and memory loss. Even the academic project he had painstakingly built over half his life had to be abandoned due to his diminished mental faculties. Sister Shen took the child back to her hometown to raise. As for Isla Lin, she ended up in prison for forging evidence and harming others, and she remains incarcerated to this day. Now he is all alone, and even the sharp edges of his once proud demeanor have been worn dull by time. But I just looked at him calmly, without even a hint of a smile curling at the corners of my lips. I stepped past him and walked towards the man behind him. The man was dressed in a grey-blue suit, exuding a gentle and refined aura. His gaze was tender as he looked at me, and he naturally reached out to hold my hand. I leaned into his embrace and said cheerfully, "Sorry to keep you waiting." I didn't look back. I knew Crucian must have seen the smile curling at the corner of my lips. His hand trembled slightly, as if wanting to reach out but then hesitating. He murmured, "Rhea, I now have everything I ever wanted, only I no longer need his remorse and belated love."